Allo Allo, good morning, and welcome to another faction overview video with the most outrageous and likely to go strange places accented critical rocket. Now, you probably expect this video to feature references to frog's legs, French defeats during war, and Monty Python references, but I imagine that was done years ago with Bretonnia being added way back when in Warhammer 1. Now, I'm here to explain the gameplay of these Arthurian-inspired warriors and their lowly peasant meat shields. That said, I will allow both sides to have their say on each other in the units section, while I spend this early part of the video explaining the general style of play and the specific mechanics unique to this faction. So, without any further rambling, let's get into it, shall we? Like every faction in Warhammer, they have their own unique quirks that dictate a certain style of play on the campaign map. Bretonnia has a strong focus on the Arthurian legends, featuring questing knights, magical mysteries, and great personal achievements to expand their legend. These are presented by vows, which lords and paladins can take up to gain powerful benefits for their forces or for their personal retinue. Lords can take the Knight's Vow, earning ranks in battle, researching technologies, or being present in a region during construction, granting bonuses to things like leadership, aura size, reducing specific unit upkeeps. Other vows can be winning battles at sea, defeating certain factions in battle, or completing a siege in hostile climates. There are others to choose from as well, and each of these can be built up to create a kind of story for your lord during the campaign. Paladins can take vows in the same categories as the Knight or Lord, doing questing for the Grail, but instead these will grant personal rewards, like improved stats, or the ability to resist death itself, merely becoming wounded instead of dying when they fall in battle. Not as shiny, obviously, as the Lords, but having your beefy paladin Jean-Francois Dubutsex take a pounding and survive to pound another day is a welcome benefit. Bretonnia is also blessed by the Lady of the Lake, who empowers her priestesses with magical ability. In turn, these priestesses can take troves, in much the same manner as a vow for a knight. Chesty LaRue, for instance, can earn rewards to reduce unit upkeep costs, improve campaign movement range, gain more power reserves for magic, and more. And all of these actions play into a rating of sorts that all Bretonnian factions compete to be the best at, and that stat is chivalry. No, not the online multiplayer game where you get your arm cut off and keep fighting by kicking other people to death. This is like a faction-wide leaderboard. The more chivalry your faction has, the more bonus traits you receive. If you, however, act in an unchivalrous manner, then be prepared to suffer the consequences. Chivalry can be earned by winning battles with most of your men alive, or researching technologies like heraldry. Wait, is heraldry technology now? Conversely, you will lose chivalry for doing things like declaring war on your fellow Bretonnian kingdoms, sacking settlements, even enemy monstrous ones, building brothels in your towns, no, seriously, ambushing enemies, raiding places, being spanked on the battlefield and made to look like a bunch of losers. It's hard not to lose points, but if you can grind your way up those leaderboards and show people like Charles Le Smug Git that you are the most virtuous knight in the land, then you can land things like improved leadership, higher recruitment ranks for your troops, reduce taint in the lands, and even the ability to summon the awesome Green Knight to the field. That said, the Kingdom of Bretonnia might like to project an image of fantasy castles, lush, beautiful landscapes, and impressive knights questing all across the land, but really all of this would fall to ruin if the peasantry were to up sticks and revolt. A majority of the armies of Bretonnia require someone on foot to absorb the damage, be the front line of your army, and generally do most of the dirty work in the fields. This requirement comes from the peasants, who are mostly farmers called into service during times of war. Every settlement you own allows you to sustain more peasant troops on the field, but if you recruit too many, then your people will begin to starve, as the important work in the fields are left unfulfilled. Bit like your mum, really. So it becomes a careful balancing act with your armies, as you will want to have a solid enough infantry force to hold the enemy in place for your well-trained knights to come crashing into the flanks. Some technologies will allow you to increase your limit of units, or even reduce the economy hit of drawing too many slack-jawed peasantry from the fields, but trust me, you need these raw, spud-munching folk if you want to stand a chance of evicting those dangerous orcs, filthy undead, or even some elves from your lands. So with the mechanics introduced, it's time to take a look at those people who'll be leading your factions. A majority of these are melee specialists, but you do have a little bit of spellcasting thrown in there as well. So we may as well go from the top and start with Luan Leoncoeur. Considered to be the greatest warrior king since Gilles the Uniter, Luan is a fearless frontline fighter for your army who can gain powerful mounts and equipment as your campaign progresses. Attributes wise, he's your classic blend of melee expert with his baguette fou and is armoured and shielded, giving him a respectable defence against most attack types. Every legendary lord, or LL remember, come with some snazzy lord effects, and Luan, like most of the LLs here, will get a +4 chivalry per turn, and he will also have all knightly vows unlocked from the start. He has the Blessing of the Lady passive, which I'll explain shortly, and he gains a leadership buff when fighting against chaos factions, undead, and greenskins for himself and his army, and he also has the same army-wide melee attack buff as well. In battle, he's a straightforward leader, capable of doling out punishment and encouraging his troops to prevent them from breaking as quickly. He has a number of passive abilities that make him quite resilient. Beloved of Bretonnia increases his base weapon damage, his charge bonus and his melee attack, with the added benefit that these same buffs will transfer to all friendly units around him. Even in the old world, celebrity can inspire people to random acts of violence. It's heartwarming really. Blessing of the Lady, as mentioned earlier, grants a physical resistance buff, but only if his leadership is broken. And finally, the Lady's champion will keep him in the fight with a slow health regeneration ability. Apparently the Lady can do all kinds of things. No wonder she's so popular in these lands. Luan, also being a knight of course, will gain access to fancy mounts as he levels up. He can unlock a couple of horses, but his ultimate end goal here is Beaucuit, a massive hippogriff that allows Luan to become a siege attacker and even destroy gates. This is his final form, and combined with his numerous knights he can quickly crush opposing armies with very little effort. All that said though, Luan and his finely honed moustache here can be bested by other lords or heroes geared to assassinate frontline fighters like himself. Armor piercing damage is his big melee weakness, while he has little to no magical defense to speak of. As such, it's best to use him on the front line for more run-of-the-mill engagements where he can support the troops in the scrum. Against threats that can have a chance of dropping him, he's best used to rout weaker enemy units, while the sacrificial troops can be used to slow down those enemy assassins, grinding down the leadership of the enemy army as a whole. Next up is the Fey Enchantress, who could be considered the Lady of the Lake's physical representative on this plane of existence. She's a powerful spellcasting legendary lord who wields immense political power and controls the territory of Carcassonne on the border of the Wood Elf forests. As a spellcaster, she's naturally spell resistant and somehow missile resistant. Her attacks are magical, thus allowing her to breach damage reduction from armor, though this doesn't mean you should, throw her into the fight against the likes of Grimgor Ironhide, unless you fancy watching a one-sided beatdown and a lot of fantasy Frenchmen running for the hills shortly after. She is capable of causing fear, however, which can make her useful for routing weaker units like goblins and some Skaven for instance. The Enchantress, though, has access to the support-focused Law of Life spell list, and this allows her to do things like heal troops, debuff enemies, and grant some defensive abilities. She does have a couple of damage-dealing spells in her main spell list, but her draw here is to keep the troops in the fight. She has the Arcane Conduit passive that allows her to regenerate some mana points in battle, while also having the regen passive Blessing of the Lady for herself. A pretty useful passive that she has though is Life Bloom, which although is on the spell list, is a constant passive for her which will regen the health of friendly troops around her. She also has the rather unfortunately named Mist of the Lady, which is a minor hex passive that actually causes enemies to have reduced melee attack as they fumble around in this mist that she's creating out of nowhere. To keep her out of danger, a few levels in, she can unlock her mount Silveron, a unicorn that can increase her survivability a tad when attacked, given that the thing has a great whacking horn on its head, and the ability to run quick should a horde of beastmen try to run her down. Third on the LL roster of legendary lords is Alberic de Bordelot, or as I like to call him, Alberic de Brodelot, yeah! I don't actually call him that. I thought it'd be funny. Sorry. Al is another fighter legendary lord, but instead he has a focus on anti-large combat with his trident. He's armoured and shielded, and honestly he's the most straightforward character in the Bretonnian lord roster. He has a pretty secure starting point in Bordelot, only really having to worry about the local bloodsuckers to his north and a few unruly greenskins to his east. He can rapidly expand economically given the sea trade routes available to him, and he has a strong defensive position to build a force to eventually oust the local wankers in his land. He has the same +4 chivalry effect like Luen gets, but his unique lord effect grants him extra melee defense for peasants, men-at-arms units and spearmen troops. He grants an improved melee defense buff for his Knights of the Realm as well, and it effectively makes Alberic's early game armies more resistant to damage and less likely to suffer casualties in battle. And in battle, he is no frills but all skills, able to gain access to mounts that make him more powerful as the campaign continues, eventually unlocking his own personal top-tier mount, Tempet, a hippogriff with nothing to lose and everything to gain. Alberic only gets a single passive ability in battle called Spirit of the Tempest, which will increase his and nearby allies' charge bonus and speed. This lends his forces to a very charge-heavy playstyle when you do have him on horseback, but when he's flying around on the field, that actually becomes less useful for his cavalry since, generally when he's flying, he's faster than them. Like Luon though, he also lacks any type of armor-piercing protection or spell resistances, so keep him away from those damage types when you can, and you can avoid a punishing rout. And to round out the legendary lords we have Réponse de Lyonesse, Bretonnia's own Jeanne d'Arc. Once again, this LL is a melee-oriented character, who wields a greatsword instead. This has the benefit of making her a powerful armor-piercing anti-infantry death machine in the melee. She's armoured as well, which makes her tough to put down once she does get swinging. She starts far to the south in the former Araby territories, facing off against the Tomb Kings and possibly some surly dwarves should they get annoyed with her proselytising and constant shouting their name every chance she gets. Presumably all the shouting is to charge her active ability in combat called Halo of Maidenly Wrath, which sounds like something Saint Celestine would use in 40k. This active ability is a type of AoE explosion that will blind enemy units around her, doing some minor damage, but doesn't actually affect friendly troops at all. This is great against enemy infantry, but very poor against large monsters or single characters. This combines with her passive ability Fleur de Lis banner, which will grant her an aura buff that increases her melee defense and melee attack for herself and allied troops around her. But no good self-respecting Bretonnian lord would be found without a horsey, and Réponse has a unique mount in the form of Suleiman. In the campaign she has the usual +4 chivalry, but also has a small leadership buff for peasants, giving them a +5 while also increasing their physical resistance by 5%. This is honestly crap, since peasants are the worst unit on the roster, and these buffs are purely to fit her Joan of Arc style character. Naturally, she does also have some downsides against certain damage types like Alberic and Luan, and of course this will apply for all 4 legendary lords when mounted, but don't charge them into spear units when you do, you silly gooses. But that covers the legendary lords of the Bretonnians, but of course we do have access to your more generic lords. Well, lord, really. The other option is a prophetess, which come in 3 flavours, so let's have a look at those, shall we? The Bretonnian lord is everyone's favourite referee, Jeff, from Tournament of the Old World. Jeff is a pretty vanilla lord really, armoured, he's shielded, he's capable of swinging a sword fairly convincingly, and he won't be winning any awards, but he can lead that secondary army fairly well. He has access to a smattering of close combat abilities like Rally, Stand Your Ground and Foe Seeker, covering the usual things like increasing attack, don't flee battle you bastards, and increased defense or allies buff. Given enough care and experience, Jeff can nab himself a warhorse, which can be upgraded to a hippogriff and eventually a royal pegasus. Basically, the Bretonnian lord is just a solid and dependable leader, but nothing spectacular. The legendary lord version of any Assassin's Creed game then, since Assassin's Creed 2. The prophetess lordesses are your magical option for generic army leadership. They love big headwear and casting spells from one of 3 laws available to them, either this being the Beasts, the Heavens, or the Law of Life, and each will alter their use on the field. The Law of Beasts will grant numerous druidic spells like the Amber Spear and Flock of Doom to attack, or they can buff their units with Pan's Impenetrable Pelt, or cursing the enemy with Curse of Andrahir. A Prophetess of the Heavens will dole out lightning-based murder like Emperor Palpatine with chain lightning attacks, gusts of wind, dropping comets on people, and the Heaven Prophetess is your main damage dealer here basically. The Law of Life we covered earlier and is your option for battlefield healer and support. All 3 of these ladies are extremely weak in the melee, and should be kept away from the fight at all costs. Keep them protected from sneaky flanking units and making a beeline on the skill tree for a mount to keep them mobile. The best mount here is the Royal Pegasus, which can do a decent amount of damage should you need to get into the melee, but can also keep them out of the fight quite handily. Bretonnia, though, is a land of chivalric action and legendary deeds, and these deeds create heroes who can be powerful tools on the battlefield, and off it, if used correctly. Probably the most powerful of these heroes, though, is the unique and incredibly cool Green Knight. The Green Knight is one of the most powerful assets available to you during a Bretonnian campaign. The fabled protector of the land, he is recruitable upon reaching a specific chivalry threshold, and will hang around for about 25 turns, acting as a regular hero who can perform actions on the map or attach to a force to ride into battle. And you will want to use him in battle. Acting as the Green Ranger equivalent for the Bretonnians, he marches into battle with armor-piercing, melee expert, ethereal, and causes terror traits. Basically, he's the Terminator in green armor plating, and it takes a lot of effort to banish him back to the land of wind and ghosts. Combine these traits with Vanguard deployment, Strider to remove any terrain penalties, Unbreakable because he's a ghostly killing machine, and a 40% physical resistance trait, and you've got one tough Gallic Knight. He even has unique abilities like the Dolorous Blade, which increases his melee and armor-piercing stats, and Sacred Guardian to give him health regen, and at this point, it's basically cheating. The other unique hero who I believe starts as part of Rapunzel's army is Henri le Massif, who is, let me check my notes here, as a translation, Henry the Massive. He's a modified paladin hero with some extra bits attached to him like a 40k orc model. He's armoured and shielded, armour-piercing, damage-dealing, anti-large murder machine. He unlocks a hippogriff mount later on to make his work a bit easier. Combined with Rapunzel's anti-infantry work, the two can actually dole out some significant damage on their own, let alone bringing an army with them. Henri even has a unique character trait, There Can Be Only One, which, like Highlander, of which there is only one film, makes him one of the best combatants on the field, with increased chivalry per turn, extra melee attacks, and charge bonuses applied. Bretonnia can bring vanilla heroes to the fight as well, should you lack the chivalry to summon death in mint flavour or start a campaign as Rapunzel. The humble paladin is your only melee choice though. These nobles of the court are much like Henri in that they're armoured and shielded, anti-large combatants. On the map they can increase the control around your settlements to stop them from rising up against you, or they can be attached to your army to increase their XP per turn, amongst a few other bonuses. They can eventually unlock their own Royal Pegasus to fly around the field after the usual horse mount, making them much more effective on the field. The other heroic option is the Damsel, which is the starting stage of any future prophetess. They all want that fancy headdress but need more practice flinging spells and shouting, "For the lady!" a few more times. The Damsel has the same lore of spells to choose from as the prophetess being Beast, Heavens and Life, but have lower overall stats compared to the Lord option. They die quickly again when attacked in melee, but can unlock war horses and eventually unicorns to keep them out of trouble, should they live long enough to level up for them. But that about covers the lords and the heroes of the Bretonnian army, a mainly melee focused lot with some magic sprinkled in and a lot of flying mounts. Good physical damage dealers for the most part, with very powerful ghost knights to show them how it's done. I was going to cover the rest of the army as I normally do, but the team went out and interviewed a couple of people from Bretonnia about the infantry, the skirmishers, cavalry, and war machines available, and honestly, I was shocked at how good and concise this information was. I'm not completely convinced about the noble's accent, as it was a bit weird sometimes and could have just been one of the crew voicing it over, but either way, it came out fine. So, over to the local experts. Yeah, if you could just tell us about the first one on the list here is the peasant mob. In your own time, please. Yes, hello. Yes, the peasant mob is basically the cheapest troop that we raise in times of war. Usually, when we need a solid line of meat in front of the enemy. So they see all of these people. We don't have the money to equip them, so we just tell them to bring whatever they were using as a tool at the time when they were tending farm, and then we sort of keep them in a organized blob, because getting them to form line is incredibly difficult. But we sort of stick them out front, so the enemy can see them and they think that, oh well, this is a very easy fight, so we will just run them over and kill them all and eat them, and that is when myself and my other knights, we will charge into the rear or the flanks of the enemy, and the peasants, who are still alive, will be very happy that we saved them, and they will feel like they have contributed to the battle. So peasants are extremely expendable, but they're also very poorly led. They will flee the battlefield very quickly, unless there is someone nearby shouting at them, telling them that is the way they are supposed to face, not the other way. The other way is bad. But they're also very cheap. You don't really have to pay peasants. You mainly just throw some old food at them, or maybe a little bit of chicken, something like that, and they're very happy. And just you can have a few of these in your force, and maybe a lot if you don't have a lot of money, and you just need something there to absorb impact of enemy charging forces, and then it allows you to look all amazing, which we do anyway. So that is a peasant mob. Is there anything else? No, that was fine. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, if you could just tell us about, or give your opinion on the mounted yeoman, if you could, in your own time. Right, mounted yeoman. They're the lads that are on the horses, right? Yeah, they're what I would like to be when I grow up. I mean, I am already grown up. I'm aware of that, but I've got a bit more growing to do. And if I could be a mounted yeoman, that's what I'd want to be. Because, for a start, they've got a shield, right? And they're very fast. So even if I can't kill anything, I can get away pretty fast. Because my horse is quite quick, yeah? And my shield, that'll protect me. And because I'm so fast, I can, like, deploy ahead. I think they call it a vanguard, vanguard, right? So I can get ahead of the army, right? And I can stay away, and then when I see the enemy, I can go, I don't want none of this. I'm gonna go over there, and then I'll hide in some trees, and then when the fighting starts, that's when I can charge in, and I can get the ones with the, with the bows and the arrows and stuff. I can run them down, and I think that's where I'd be pretty good, because if I got in the fight, I'm gonna die. I'm pretty poor in a fight, and looking at the other mounted yeomen, they're not much better either. In fact, I'd say that if you're looking at them, right, they're all pretty terrible in like a straight up fight on horses. I mean, even against other people on foot, they're not going to last long. So you best, I'd imagine, just thinking they'd be best for attacking things like archers and stuff like that, but not getting in the fight. Maybe rushing people from the back. Is that all you needed? Yeah, that's fine. Yes. The men-at-arms and men-at-arms with shields. Well, we regularly we look at the peasants and we go, you will do. You are quite big for a peasant. You might fit the armor that we've got. So we bring them back to the castle or the fort, and we give them a nice uniform, and a bit of armor and a shield and a sword. Sometimes just a sword. The shields can be a little bit expensive, but overall, you know, men-at-arms, they can form a line, unlike an organized blob like the peasants, and they are just as expendable. There's always more peasants where you need them, and there are always more men-at-arms when you need them, so why not? They're also very poorly led, so again, you're gonna have to have someone like myself, someone very charismatic, who can sit there at the back shouting at them, no, hit that man with the sword. But the shields, if you have them with the shields, then it means that if arrows are fired, at least they can protect themselves. No, they don't have armor like I have, but they are very, very resistant to some range fire, as long as it is not magical, and they're fine, and they do last longer in the fights, and again, that allows me to, you know, tell the rest of me and my friends who are on horses, and we can get around the side, we can get around the rear of the enemy, we can crash into the back of them, and we look amazing. And yeah, so men-at-arms and men-at-arms with shields, they are very good units, and I would recommend having many of these in the early parts of a campaign until you can get your better infantry up there, and that is when things will be very, very good. Can you tell us about knights errant? Oh, the knights errant! I see them quite regularly, right? And they are just so amazing to look at. They're armored, they're shielded. You see them there. They stand so tall compared. They're mountains of men. They're amazing. They're great, and I would say that they're really good as anti-infantry. And you see the size of their arses, right? And they're on the back of them with their armor, and I'd say they've got a great charge ability. Like, you imagine them crashing into it. They'd send hay bales everywhere. I mean, if me and you lot were all just stood there, right, and we were going, we're like nasty orcs, and we're going to take over and ruin your crops and steal your favourite pig, and then they ran at you, right, even just a couple, we wouldn't stand a chance. We'd get flattened, because we're just orcs or goblins. And you see them all over. You know, they're probably the most commonly seen, like, horse unit out in the army, right? You see a lot of them. But I mean, I don't want to say nothing bad about my betters, right? But I've seen them when they're not charging in, and they don't fight as well. You do see them get, you know, sometimes knocked off. I'm not saying they're dead, because they're my betters, but when they're hit by, like, a wood elf or a tree person, and they fall off the arse, and the arse falls on them and they stop moving, I can only assume that they might be having a bit of a sleep, because they're not that great in extended melee fights, yeah? So they do best when you hit enemies in the side, when the enemy's distracted, you know, fighting like my fifth cousin when he's in the peasant mob, or like my brother who's in the men-at-arms. You know, they do better when they're hitting the enemies when they're distracted by my family members, but not so long in the fight. No, they're not that great. As the spearmen-at-arms and the spearmen-at-arms with shields, there's a little bit of a pattern going on here, don't you? So, obviously, the greatest fear for me as a cavalryman is the spear. Don't want to run into a spear. It won't hurt me. I will land on my feet, but my horse, it will have a very bad time. And this is what spearmen do. They're very good. You put them in the line, and they are great at absorbing the charge, and they have a great defense against large foes. And when I say large, I mean anyone who's on a horse. I mean, I'm not talking about an hydra or a dragon, but you know, it's anything like a horse or some kind of centaur, beastman, that kind of thing. So they're also very expendable. They are cheap. Yeah, it doesn't cost me a lot to raise these people for combat. It's very cheap to equip them. But the shielded ones, again, they can live a little longer if they're getting shot at. But they have poor leadership, the same as all the others. They are so stupid. You have to constantly keep someone nearby to make sure that they are not going to just run away. But when I need someone who can absorb some impact and keep my peasant bowmen alive long enough, I will keep them back there. They will protect the peasants, they will protect the prophetess and the such. Anyone who I need not being killed behind me, I should put these here, and they should stop any of those kind of fast-moving enemy cavalry, and then I can ride in and save them and look like a real hero. Very chivalrous. What about Knights of the Realm? What can you tell us about them? Right. Oh, you got the funniest story, right? So there were these orcs, right? And they were riding around, and they were on the back of like really big pigs, and they were attacking, and they were burning places, and they burnt my aunt's barn down. She spent a long time building that, right? She had to get permission and everything, but she got it built, and it looked really nice. But these pigs with these orcs on the back of them, they were going around, they were causing trouble, and these Knights of the Realm, they just came in out of nowhere. It was amazing, and I was just like, look at that, that's Knights of the Realm, that is. And they came in, and they just one swing, right? One of them just cut the pig's head off. And then the orc, right, he's just sat there on his dead pig going, what's happened to me pig? Why has me pig stopped moving? And then he wasn't talking that much longer, because then he was dead not long after. But it looked really good. And these Knights of the Realm, they're big, and they're armoured and shielded. And I'd say, if anything, they're like anti-cavalry. I think that's what they kind of, that's what they're built around. And the one thing I will note, though, is that it didn't seem like they had a very easy time penetrating the armor. Like, they weren't very good at armor piercing, I think it's called. I think that's what they said it was. And so they're like really good at flanking and charging, but they're not that great at being able to, stay in the fight. And they're really good though at killing other horses or large pigs in this case. They were great at that. So I think they're great. I love them. So what about men at arms with pole arms? As in men at arms with pole arms. So these are people that if they weren't covered in filth, I would tell one of my men to give them a hug. They are so much better than the other men at arms. They are equipped with a better weapon. They are armor piercing. They're very good at killing enemy cavalry. They are very, very good at defending themselves from larger foes. They are great. And if I could find more of these kinds of men, it'd be better. They are not prone to running in the wrong direction. They are actually very good at standing their ground and being able to fight. And I would say that they are probably the most competent infantry that is available to me at drop of the helm, if needed. So if you can, I would always recommend having a few of these in your force. But of course, they're still going to be weak. I mean, arrows is going to kill them very quickly. They can't run as fast as I can because I'm on a horse, and they are not. They are on foot because they are peasant. So you've got to be very careful with your deployment for them. But on the front line, very dependable, and I recommend them greatly. We actually pay these ones, which is okay. I accept this. This is a fair payment. Have you ever encountered any questing knights? Oh, I haven't personally, but my sister has, and she said that questing knights are, well, I mean, she said they were dreamy and extremely handsome. I can't say that myself, but she described them as being like well armored, and they had quite a big sword. I think it's like a two-handed one, she said, which meant they were very good at probably, chopping off heads of infantry, that kind of thing. And they were on a quite powerful horse, which meant that they were very, very fast, but were pretty good at being able to charge. She imagines. I mean, this is all just, what she's telling me, so I can only go by what I've been told. Apparently they're looking for the Grail, which is a cup or something, and that'll allow them to live forever. So she says she was told. But I don't know. Questing knights just sound like they're quite powerful and very good at being able to kill a lot of infantry very quickly. You know, you get them into the fight, and that's where they're gonna stay. And you don't have to worry so much about. I imagine you wouldn't have to worry so much about making them charge in and out. You just get them in there, and they just get stuck in. So yeah, I've been told questing knights are pretty good. So have you ever used battle pilgrims on the front line? Well, the battle pilgrims are they're very how do you say? They're very dedicated. They have a lot of energy about this. Say that some would say that they would whip themselves into a frenzy when they get into battle. And provided that there is someone around to keep the morale high, they will just keep fighting. Battle pilgrims are shielded as well, and they are very, very good at doing a lot of damage very quickly to whoever decides to get close to battle pilgrims. It's not something that I would want to do personally. But yes, the battle pilgrims are an effective frontline force. I'd usually say, hey, go and kill that person. They are very, very, very hateful as a lady, and that is it. That's all this needs to set them off, and away they go, and they run off, and they start to hit them until they stop moving. And I like to use them in many situations to keep the enemy pinned, so then I can move my faster moving units around until we can crush the enemy, and I can take also glory. So it's great. How about Grail Knights? Alright, I'm not lying. I'm not lying when I tell you this, but a Grail Knight came through the village once, and I swear, right, the potato that I was eating raw tasted sweet just by being near him. It was amazing. So, if anything, I'd say a Grail Knight is like a living saint. He can make food taste even better just by being there. And that's not to say how, you know, amazing they must be in battle. Grail Knights are armoured and they carry a shield, and they've got the ability to you know, charge really fast on their you know, they're almost magical looking steeds. And I mean, I've heard, right, from my 5th cousin that they are blessed by the lady because they found that magical cup that the questing knights are looking for, and because they drunk from it, they gain powers. And to be honest, a few times me and my friends have gone looking for a magical cup, but it doesn't give us any kind of powers. It just makes us drunk when we use it. But they Grail Knights, as I've been told by my 5th cousin, is they have deadly charging attacks, but because of, you know, being the fact that they're blessed by the lady and everything, they're really expensive, and the local lord doesn't really like to, you know, have to, you know, keep them around as long because they're very expensive. They've got great tastes. I imagine they eat all the best potatoes that, you know, they can get their hands on. They probably get the best potatoes. They probably get the roundest potatoes in all the land. And I'm really jealous of that. Foot squires are an interesting one. Can you explain that? Foot squires, they're basically like my right-hand man. And all of us knights, we have a squire. We need somebody to fetch fresh food for us, to wipe out behind after we have been, to also bring, you know, carry our equipment when we need it. Also, when we are professing our love for another beautiful lady, we will need a squire who could be there to play the, you know, the lute or the lyre nearby. So, foot squires are very important, and when we go into battles, the foot squire, he always dreams of one day being a knight. He may get there, but you know, he's a very, very good infantryman nonetheless, as they are trained in the use of two-handed weapons, which they're very good at piercing enemy armor. They're very, very capable of dealing with infantry should they get into the fights. They do a lot of damage very quickly, And as such, I would say that they are very solid frontline units. If you can find many squires to make up an army, you should use them, so they are very dependable, very strong. But if they are attacked by enemy cavalry, they will not last as long. They don't have as much resistance against them. And if anything, like a minotaur or something larger like that, were to charge into a troll as such, they're going to struggle. But overall, they are probably the best infantry that we have here in Bretonnia. And I would say that makes them the best infantry in the world, because everything in Bretonnia is the best. How about Grail Guardians? Oh, they're like Grail Knights, but they guard you instead, aren't they? Or are they Grail Guardians? Guardians. They're the same as the Knights in that they're armoured and they have a shield. And that they also make food taste better by just being around them like a living saint. But, you know, my other cousin who's in the foot squires, he's told me that he's seen Grail Guardians just go through infantry like they weren't even there. And I don't mean like when they charge, because that's powerful as well, right? But I mean like that it's just like they're better at killing infantry than they are like other horses. So they just work better in that regard. So he theorized, which is a new word for me that I've just learned right now, that they are probably better as an infantry killing unit than they are as like a cavalry killing unit, which the knights are better at doing. So combined, you've got quite a powerful tandem force. Tandem being a new word that I've just learned, and I don't think probably existed in the time period in which we exist. But don't mind that. They also never lose vigor, which is the third word I've just learned doing this. But basically they just don't get tired. And they're just better overall in the melee compared to Grail Knights. I said it there, and I'm not afraid of the consequences. There's a strange item out there that we've heard some of the men shouting, the Grail Relique. Can you tell us anything about that? This is a grim one. It's a Grail Relique is basically so if an hero were to die on the field, sometimes battle pilgrims or even some of the men, when you're not looking, they will take a body and they will basically attach it to a plank of wood, and then they will start to carry it around as if it is a horse with a person on the back. It is extremely creepy, but we realize that it actually seems to have some kind of effect because the men stayed in the fight longer. As long as it was there, they all seem to look at it and go, oh look, there's a knight, there's a Grail Knight over there. Look, he's totally alive, he is not dead. And he's making everybody fight harder and is not taking as much damage, and it was very weird, but it was a trend that started and it just continued from there, and they're everywhere now. Sometimes you see them and they're just being paraded through a village and everyone is just dancing and they all seem very happy, and we're all sat back in the castle going, what are they doing? Why is he carrying around a dead person on a bit of wood, pretending to the horse? And that's why we have a separation, but that's why we have the nobility and the peasantry, because the peasants, they would literally kill us all and have our corpses on bits of wood dancing around in the village, and that is frankly terrifying. How about Pegasus Knights? A horse that can fly. I didn't believe it, right, until I saw it, and then I was gobsmacked. So Pegasus Knights are so beautiful. I mean the horses, I don't know about the knights, but the horses are absolutely beautiful. I think I could just stroke them forever, you know. They're armored, and the shield, not the horse, the knight is armored and shielded. And because of their ability to just be able to fly around, they're really fast. And they're quite good in the melee, but they're also very good at killing other cavalry, because they're not looking in the sky, right? So when a flying horse drops on them, dead instantly. It's game over. So they're really good at that. But the other thing is, and it's what makes, you know, my friends who are in the mounted yeomanry feel really inadequate, is that the one thing that they were good at doing, which was going around, you know, really far around the flanks and then charging in and killing, like, you know, Arab boys and stuff, is that Pegasus Knights can just do it. They just fly straight over and attack them. I mean, sometimes they do get shot down when they go head on, but if they just fly around the side and hit them, they won't expect it, and that's what makes Pegasus Knights really great. And mounted yeomanry hate them because of their ability to fly. So you don't have much in the way of ranged combat, do you? No, we do not. A knight is not a man who will use a bow. It is a dishonorable act. It is very unchivalrous. We will only fight with a two-handed sword, one-handed sword, or a trident or a lance, and that is all we will fight with. We refuse to ever use a bow from horseback. It is anathema to us. That is why we let the peasants. They will go out with the bows. They will hunt sometimes, but most of the time we should put them on the front line and we let them fire arrows. But I will tell you now, they can't eat shit. Peasant bowmen, you need a lot of them to actually make sure that they kill anything. Mainly it is just more of a morale thing to make the rest of the men in the front line think that there's something happening, but really they can't hit the broadside of a barn. Coupled with this, they are very prone to running away, so you have to make sure again that there's someone nearby. And a long time ago someone came up with the idea of giving some of the peasant bowmen arrows that were on fire. This is sometimes a bad idea, but when the local wood elf population decides to get a little bit rowdy, we will send the peasants with the bows and the arrows that are on fire, and the trees will burn. And then the wood elves go, oh, I do not want any more of this. My tree friends are dying. They are on fire and turning into kindling. I will leave. Other than that, so I would not use them against normal infantry because the arrows don't seem to penetrate armor as much when they're on fire. And then there's an unfortunate side effect where sometimes there are some peasants who decide that they're going to cover their arrows in dung, and they like to fire that at the enemy, which does have the upside that it poisons them. Sometimes it is a very quick poison, almost instant. I don't know how this works, but they are poisoned instantly. I'm not going to complain. I just don't want to be anywhere near them because they smell horrific. But the peasants, yes, they are our only bowmen. We are not like the Empire, where we need like arquebuses and crossbows and longbows and all this. We need horses and men to absorb the charge, and that's all we need. Sticking with the Pegasus Knights, what about the Royal ones? Have you ever seen them? I've not, because as you can see, we're in a small hamlet out in the middle of nowhere, and you've just turned up and started asking me questions about very specific, you know, knights and nobles, and I'm not that smart because I eat raw potatoes. But that said, I will tell you what I've heard and know about Royal Pegasus Knights. They're armoured and shielded, and they are living saints. Again, it's said, but I don't know this for fact, but maybe just take this by my word here, they are considered anti-large, and they're very fast because they're on flying horses, yeah? And that I've been told, and I've got no reason not to believe this, but their attacks are considered to be magical. I don't know what that actually means, because I'm a peasant and I'm thick, so I don't know nothing proper. But they don't lose vigor, so they just keep running around when they are on the ground, or they just fly forever. But there's not many of them, so if any of them do die, which being a living saint, I refuse to believe that could ever happen, but if it did, you would definitely feel that loss. So you gotta keep that in mind, right? I imagine. having never seen a Royal Pegasus Knight because I'm a peasant in a village. Well, outside of bows, you also have field trebuchets. I've seen a few of them. Yes, we also allow the peasants to sometimes bring their own machinery to the field, in this case the trebuchet. It basically throws large pieces of masonry at the enemy, usually missing, and making a right mess out of my fields when it happens. And then I have to tell them to go and get the stones that they've thrown and bring them back after a battle, because I don't want them out there, because I don't want to be riding around and accidentally trip over a massive chunk of rock that they have thrown and missed. That said, when they do hit, it does definitely hurt. I don't imagine it'd be very good to be hit by a large piece of masonry. If the enemy are all grouped up, this is a lot better. But accuracy very poor. The other problem I've noticed is that trebuchets are so massive that if the enemy have brought any of their own artillery, then it's very easy for the trebuchet to be hit. This is why I let the peasants handle this, because I do not want to get hit by a large stone. So, and the other problem is that trebuchet, I have to have people to protect them, because nearly always there is some small fast units like war dogs or something like this, and they come out the trees and they attack the trebuchet, and the peasants are screaming while they're being eaten, and then I have to go back and I have to protect them. So I sometimes have to make sure that the trebuchet is protected by a unit or 2 or 3, just to make sure that they don't get destroyed. Sometimes it's just easier to have peasants in the line, and then I run into the enemy and they die. The final knights would be the Royal Hippogriff. Right, I'm telling you, this is getting annoying now, because I don't know nothing. I don't know what a hippogriff is. But, based on everything that we have discussed so far, what I imagine is that a hippogriff would be a large magical beast with giant claws, right? And a beak. And they're capable of armor piercing. I imagine they're quite terrifying, so they probably cause fear and terror to anyone nearby. And I imagine that something as large and as powerful as this creature, it's probably an expensive unit to, keep. I don't even know, would you keep it in a stable? I haven't got an idea. I mean, I've been near a horse, and I imagine a hippogriff is a lot larger than that, yeah? So I don't think a stable is going to be big enough. But I imagine something as big as that is probably good against infantry, and anything that's got low thinking, and it makes them run quicker. But this is all stuff I don't understand. I don't even know why I'm saying these words. Help me. The last thing I want to ask you about is we've seen a blessed field trebuchet. Yes, the blessed field trebuchet, and when they say blessed, it is not by the lady. This is, these are trebuchets that some of the commoners seem to think is somehow blessed, because when a rock lands nearby, it didn't hit them. It sort of lightly damaged the enemy with the impact into the ground. So it must be special. Oh, isn't this a blessed field trebuchet? It's still large, it's still easy to hit. And if an enemy is hit by the rocks it throws, it still kills them. And I suppose on the few occasions that we have to besiege a location, it's always good to have some trebuchets. But a blessed one, they say it is less likely to hit them because it's blessed. I don't know why they think rocks are magical in this way, or blessed in any type of way, but bless those poor little peasants' arts, because that is what they believe, and who am I to mess with their fragile belief system? So, blessed field trebuchet, I suppose, is better than a normal one, but it is like comparing, two sides of the same coin. It's still the same coin, one side is slightly shinier than the other. Is that it? Is that we are done with your questioning? Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much for your time. Is that we're going now? I need to quaff wine and ride around on my horse. Alright, just as a final one, and I'm sure you'll know about, what about mounted yeoman archers? Right, I can actually tell you about these because my uncle, he's a mounted yeoman archer, so they're really useful because they're like bowmen, but on a horse. So arguably they're better than the peasant bowmen because they can run away, whereas the peasant bowmen they can try, but they'll just get, you know, eaten. So they can deploy a little further ahead like a vanguard, and they can harass the enemy, and if like other horses come after them, they just run away. But the great thing is they can keep firing as they go, so more fool them, right? Because they'll get killed, and my uncle and his friends, they just ride around and keep shooting arrows. So they're pretty useful, I'd say, for being able to just, you know, keep up harassment and distracting enemies who are too stupid to realise that that's what's being done. And so, yeah, it works overall. It's great. I don't mind mounted yeoman archers, but I've really got to get back to, like, ploughing my field. So if we're done here, I'm just gonna go. Yeah, that's great. Thanks very much. Right. Well, with those interviews, that's the end of this video. Questionable accents aside, I feel you now all have a better idea of the force that Bretonnia can bring to the field, and I'm sure you have a keen interest in finding the Grail, worshipping the lady, and buying your own horse called Ploppy. They're the Bretonnians. They aren't the most varied army in Warhammer Total War, but what they do really well, and that is generally having large formations of cavalry backed by easily deployable, cheap to maintain infantry that can lock the enemy in place, and the cavalry can just tear them apart. Makes them very, very simple but effective forces overall. And yeah, I feel they're quite unique because of that. So thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. And yeah, I'll catch you all next time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.